There is breaking news now, and this is continuing coverage of the uprising in Iran. I'm Shepard Smith at Fox News World Headquarters in New York. Following is a special 2-hour edition of Fox Report Saturday. We knew this would be the day. People would at last give up, as their leaders now demand, or defy them at risk of death. Because after days of demonstrations, Iran's supreme leader laid down the law just yesterday at Friday prayers. Stop the protests, or there will be bloodshed. The protests continued, and tonight we have word dozens are dead, hundreds are injured, and the future of Iran's government is very much in question. We know this in large part because of the advent of social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter. The Iranian leaders did not want the repressive regimes to have gone for centuries. Stop the message from getting out. Many journalists were kicked out, others arrested, communications blocked, people threatened. But this time, the information flow has continued in a way never witnessed in world history. We're getting disturbing, sometimes horrifying images from Iran. We didn't take them. Iranians did. So tonight, like never before, we'll report. You decide. These images believed to show Iranians running from government militiamen in the streets of the capital city. At another site in Tehran, protesters pulled an apparent militiaman from his motorcycle and beat him in the streets, eventually setting his bike on fire. And this video said to show the aftermath of a shooting that left at least one man dead. Elsewhere in Tehran, witnesses report police have been using tear gas and water cannons, putting down thousands who came for peaceful protest in defiance of a warning from Iran's supreme leader. And there are stunning reports that, if verified, may change the nation forever. Reports now of chemicals, hot chemicals, described as acid-like, being poured from helicopters onto the crowds below. This all began with an election. The hardline incumbent, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, running last Friday for another term as president. The turnout was massive. The ballots on paper, not computer. Tens of millions of voters, yet within 4 short hours, the government declared they'd been hand-counted, and Ahmadinejad had won in a landslide. The people largely did not believe it. And with international monitors banned, much of the world called the election a sham. That's what precipitated the protests. The de facto leader of them, Mir Hossein Mousavi, whose supporters voted for him on a promise of very simple reforms. Reforms like restrictions on the public stoning of women and freedoms to express views on the most basic issues. Those supporters wanted the election tossed and another revote called. The supreme leader said no. The election stands. And as I said, that's where it began. Today, this is about much more. It's about a repressed society demanding a say in the government of their lives. It's about Islamist dictators trying to keep the masses in check. And it's brought about because so far they cannot. And the truth is emerging through the internet, a concept beyond the very leaders' wildest nightmares when their own revolution took place 3 decades ago. So tonight, the de facto leader of the opposition hasn't been recorded in public since Thursday. Messages on his website to the establishment: allow the legal rallies or face the consequences. To his followers: I will forever be by your side. I am prepared for martyrdom. The government fighting against the people in the streets, the people defying tyrannical rule, and the opposition leader prepared tonight to die. Now Iran is at a crossroads with history, and without the internet, we might not even know it. Extensive Team Fox coverage over the next 2 hours tonight. Mike Emanuel with actions and reactions from the White House. Laura Ingle with new reports coming into us from social networking sites. First to our correspondent, Amy Kellogg. Amy has covered Iran extensively for years. She has excellent sources there and on all levels. And she'd be there right now, but Iran's rulers will not permit it. Amy, tonight from London, what have you learned?
Well, I think that Mir Hossein Mousavi has made the decision of his life by saying that he's prepared to be a martyr, that he's going to follow this path until the end, Shep. He is in a perilous position. People are worried about him, of course, worried about all the other protesters as well, but there's fear that he will be arrested and even possibly worse. So he, this man who came from the system, who was the prime minister during the most repressive years of the Islamic regime, has changed over time into this crusader who has defied the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic by continuing on his path and saying that he is going to stick with it until the end. And as we see, his hardcore of supporters were out there tonight defying those riot police and all of the restrictions placed upon them, Shep.
All right, we've just gotten a dispatch from Mir Hossein Mousavi's website and the media information and saying, keep hope alive. That is the role. What are people saying about whether these protests can and might continue tomorrow, Amy?
Well, because of the difficulties in communication, I think it's hard for people to actually plan the protests, and they're trying to evade the authorities. But so much of what's been going on has been spontaneous. There have been pockets of protests all evening across Tehran. One person said to me over the phone from Tehran this evening, it's like a street party meets carnival meets war, Shep.
Amy, we heard reports earlier, and you know, it's so frustrating not being able to confirm anything, but there were reports, and many of them, that Mousavi may have been under arrest. This opposition leader, de facto at least, is there anything to that report as far as you've been able to learn?
People have been worried about him being arrested, Shep. So many of his colleagues have been arrested, his inner circle. But we've been hearing these rumors for days. They've not been proven. He's been quoted this evening. No one has seen him. One of the things that he is said to have said, Shep, is that if he is arrested, he wants there to be a nationwide strike. A nationwide strike could be crippling, and that would harken back to the days of the Islamic Revolution when there were strikes across the country, Shep.
In Iran, Amy, for context, a nationwide strike would mean not going to any more stores, stores shutting down, commerce collapsing. But I think more importantly than anything, Amy, it could mean the deterioration of the regime's ability to get oil out of the ground and to process it. Their economy is in shambles, and that's what people were protesting about from the very beginning. If oil resources were to dry, this thing could change quite dramatically, could it not?
Yeah, that's a very important point to make. That we would feel the effects of that around the world. But there are so many ways in which a strike could really cripple the nation. It's quite obvious the ways in which that could happen, Shep. Oil, of course, resonates with all of us, but if you think of transportation breaking down, if you think of the shops closing, the hospitals, the schools, that would be a very strong statement. And I've heard reports, Shep, that some people have actually wanted to go on strike in the bazaar, for example, but they've been forced to go to work, so they've done sort of passive-aggressive maneuvers like going to their stores but keeping the doors locked. So there's been a lot of symbolic action going on all along, Shep, and it could just continue, and the ante could be upped very soon.
Our Amy Kellogg from London this evening, working her sources inside the Islamic Republic. Amy, great of your eyes and ears, and we'll look forward to getting back with you throughout the next couple of hours. You know, adding to the increasingly chaotic situation here in Iran, there are reports of bombings at the shrine of the founder of the Islamic Republic, the Ayatollah Khamenei. According to Iran's state-run news service, a suicide bomber killed himself and wounded 3 others in this attack. That bombing on the southwestern edge of Tehran. The news agency called it a terrorist attack, and earlier reports had the death toll higher. As you know, the Ayatollah Khamenei was the man behind, this is the Ayatollah Khomeini behind Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution. And the bombing at the mausoleum could further inflame anger among the current regime supporters. Now to Washington. The uprising in Iran is matter for leadership, diplomacy, and no doubt politics. An urgent message tonight from the leader of the free world, President Obama, to the Iranian government: the violence must stop. There have been calls for stronger words. Republicans have insisted we must up the rhetoric. Voice of freed people's strong support from a world away. But the White House has made it clear we cannot give ammunition to Iran's government, as they'd like to paint the demonstrators as tools of America. The president has maintained a measured tone with increasing urgency as the days have passed and tensions have escalated. And tonight, how to send the right message to help without inflaming, with the knowledge that someday, and maybe soon, our leaders will again be dealing with whatever Iranian leadership emerges, confronting the long list of challenges, nuclear and otherwise, that plagued us before this uprising and are ever present, even as the masses rebel.